Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia, and our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to be here, as I always am. I am a life and business transformational success coach and strategist, a #1 international best-selling author, award-winning inspirational speaker, and a humanitarian, illuminating, educating, inspiring, empowering, and igniting people to find and embrace their life purpose, live their highest vision, and forge a strong foundation to soar to success. I'm so excited. Today, we're going to give you some verbal caffeine to light up the possibilities with our beautiful guest, Eric Dagati. He has spent the past 25 years as a coach, a trainer, an instructor. Each year, Eric travels around the world teaching and speaking to trainers, coaches, and clinicians. His list of training and consulting clients include individuals and teams from all major sports, from amateur to professional level. And Eric also serves on the advisory board for the On Base University Baseball Health Network and a Raritan Valley College Exercise Science Department. He also appeared in the New York Times bestseller, The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. Welcome to the show. I'm so honored to have you here, Eric.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Lauren.
I'm so happy to have you here. So, what are the three big things when it comes to optimal fitness, wellness, and performance? That's a question that comes up all the time.
Okay, so and because it comes up all the time, I try to keep it as simple as possible, and I have a little bit of OCD, so I do everything in threes. So I keep it simple and say, look, there's three main categories, and then off those big three, I can dial it down to the most granular level. But the big three things, we step back, and it doesn't matter whether you're an NFL athlete, you're a 50-year-old executive, or you're anywhere in between, is that I teach the same principles. It's just a matter of how we execute it is going to be a little bit different, depending on if you have to go onto a pro soccer pitch versus you need to go into a boardroom. So the big three things are this: you got to move, right? And that's pretty simple, but what does that mean? We can go a little bit more in depth with that, but you got to move. You got to be able to move. And within that, you got to be able to move well. Like, you should be not restricted or impeded by your movement. So you got to be able to do simple things like touch your toes. You got to be able to rotate right and left. You got to be able to reach behind your back and get a coat on. Those simple movements allow you the freedom to do a whole lot of things. And those simple movements get robbed from us over time from sitting in desks and chairs all day. And then once you move well, then you got to move with some purpose. And so that means you have the strength to get up a flight of stairs and not be winded and not have your legs kind of feel like they're buckling. And then you want to be able to move often. You want to be able to have the freedom that if I want to go and go kayaking, if I want to go hiking, if I want to do those things, I'm not impeded by any physical restrictions. And that's really the freedom that we want to give people. So the first bucket is move, with those kind of three caveats underneath it. The second one is that we have to fuel, all right? Meaning we need to run on something. And most people think of that as nutrition, which is a huge part of it. So there's not only what we eat, there's also everything that we not just put in our mouths, but our eyes and ears as well. So that includes the people you hang around with, the books that you read, the TV that you watch, what you let in through this thing, through your phone and through social media. And that's going to have a positive or negative effect, no different than eating donuts versus greens, right? So fuel is an important part, and that's what we run on. And the last piece is reset. And this is one of the first things that I teach people when I start working with them, is I ask them a simple question. I say, when we train, do you think we build up or break down? And they'll kind of roll their eyes and they'll say, oh, build up. I'll say, try again. I'll say, oh, break down. And I say, yeah, well, basically the way it works is this simple, is that every cell in our body, all trillion of them that are turning over every second that we're sitting here talking, they have one job: is to survive another day. And so they adapt. And so if it was cold, we'd shiver to warm up. If it was hot, we'd sweat to cool down. Well, if you go lift heavy things like the weights behind me, your body says, oh my gosh, if you're going to keep doing that, I'm going to have to get stronger. I may even build some muscle. If you go out and for a run, it's going to start building more cardiovascular efficiency. So you have a body kind of built for what it is that you do, but the magic's not happening in this room. The magic's happening the other 23 hours a day. And the analogy I use is, all I'm doing here with you is planting seeds. Now, if I plant the seeds on this rubber gym floor, nothing's going to grow. So what I need fertile soil, and you're going to provide that. I can't do that for you. That's going to come from what happens the other 23 hours, and that's part of your reset. That's your sleep. Most importantly, it's your ability to down regulate and to shut off, whether that's meditation, whether that's just being able to adjust your states, those sorts of things. That's the reset. So you got move, you got fuel, and you got reset.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Just amazing. So I don't enjoy exercising. I enjoy
Most don't.
doing things like sitting there lifting weights is not something that I aspire to do. I find it incredibly boring for me. So what's the best way for a beginner like myself to get started with exercise? So I stay in the game, because it's like you'll do it, and then it's like it peters out, right? So what's the
Yeah,
best way for a beginner to really get started and stay in the game?
yeah, absolutely. You got to find something that you enjoy. And that's the mistake that people in my industry make, and that's where we fail miserably. 60 to 70% of the people that join a gym will drop out within the first 3 months, because we're trying to sell you on the fact that, hey, I love lifting weights, you should love lifting weights too, and that doesn't necessarily the case for everybody. And as much as there's some incredible benefits you can get from this, there's people that live thriving, healthy lives to 100 and beyond that never touch a weight in their entire lives. But the elements are the same. They challenge themselves. So whether you challenge yourself in my weight room doing some step ups holding dumbbells, or you go for a steep hike, is there really that big of a difference? Not really. So you could find these activities that you like. Now, it's the principles that have to apply. You need something that's going to challenge your ability to, like I said, to move with some purpose, to have some strength. So that may mean something that you can't necessarily do for long periods, whether that's hike up a big hill, whether that's climbing, whether that's kayaking, whether that's something that you're going all out. I don't care if you dance or if you play tennis, something that you're going to kind of go as close to your peak as you can, and it's going to challenge you to have that ability to move with purpose. Then on the flip side, you got to do something that's going to allow you to move often. And that could be something as simple as a long walk, a bike ride, something of that nature that's not nearly as intense, but you could do it for a while, and it's enough that you probably are just on the fringe of being able to hold a conversation, but you're doing some work. And if you can hit those two ends of the spectrum, you have a lot of options available to you. And it's just a matter of finding the right fit for what it is that you like to do.
Yeah, I love to hike. I absolutely love it. It's very challenging. We have a mountain, Mohonk Mountain up here in New York, that I love going to, because there's over 100 different trails. I love the hiking, love kayaking. That's great. Lifting weights, not so much. I know there's benefits to it, without a doubt. But I really, I like those activities where I feel like there's a middle, a beginning, and an end. I don't feel like that with weights. Is there a way for us to might kind of get that feeling with weights? Because it would be nice to be able to tone utilizing weights as well.
Yeah. So the first thing is that you got to make it more efficient. And what I mean by that is most people assume that you have to have an hour, which is some kind of number that got plucked out of the air and doesn't necessarily mean the case. So you can get something really effective done in 20 to 30 minutes tops, if not even less, depending on how much volume you do. I mean, it's really about training is cumulative, meaning it's not about one rep or one set or one workout. It's about what happens over time. So, whether you did one hour workout or you did 4 15-minute workouts, it kind of works out for the most part the same, unless your goal is really specific. So if you can make it more efficient, so it's more doable, and then you don't have to go to a gym and do it in some special room. Like, you could do stuff at home with either doing body weight or go to a park and do some, stuff on the playground. Do some simple things at home with a dumbbell or kettlebell. You don't need to have a whole lot of fancy equipment or go to a special place, because that's what makes people think that either one, they're self-conscious. I don't want to be in a room with a bunch of people who know what they're doing, and I don't. Or it's like, I just don't have the time to go and find a parking spot and then go to, and it takes up a huge chunk of the day that you don't want to dedicate to it. But if I said, look, here's 20 minutes, just go ahead in your basement and crank this out a couple times a week, that's a little bit more palatable for most people.
Yes, yes.
So, and that's number one. And then number two is anything you want to get better at in terms of a habit, especially with exercise, is gamify it, right? And like you said, it has a beginning, middle, and end. Well, there's no gamification. I lift the same 10-pound dumbbells every day. And so there needs to be something where you're going to challenge yourself. And there's some interesting research where they showed, let's say if I gave you And I'm going to give you something everybody could think of. You're just standing there and you're doing some bicep curls. And let's say I told you I need you to do 3 sets of 10. That's what most people think of, even that's not the magic formula, but just so everybody can kind of wrap their heads around it. And I gave you 10-pound dumbbells. Now, at some point, those 10-pound dumbbells may be really challenging. At some point, they may end up getting really easy. And so the magic of this is to find the sweet spot, is what we call the edge of your ability. And what that means is, for this to work, I already said, we have to be challenged. You have to challenge yourself or you won't change. But you also need to be successful. So if I told you to go ahead and do 10 repetitions and you grab 15-pound dumbbells and you can only get to 5 before your form starts falling apart and you can't do it well anymore, well, then you were very challenged. You just weren't successful. But then if you grab 5s and you get to 10 and you're like, I could have done 10 or 20 more, well, then you're really successful. You're just not really challenged. So I need to get to the point where you get to that last one and you maybe could have done 1 or 2 more perfect ones. And then that was about it. And then what's going to happen is, because of this adaptation, about a week in or 2 weeks in, you're going to notice, you know what, I could have done 2 or 3 or 4 more. And so the research shows that you can either go and do those extra reps, or if you go up to a 12-pound dumbbell, you're going to get the same result. You're going to get stronger. You're going to add muscle. You just need to have some continuous challenge. And the only way to do that is make sure you're always at that sweet spot of the edge of your ability.
I was just laughing because it reminds me of something about Mary, the 7-minute abs. I could do it in 6 minutes. So I know that I had a personal trainer and they insisted that I do burpees. And I was like, I don't want to do burpees. I just feel awkward. It's uncomfortable. I can't do them. There was a lot of can't. And it was more like won't. So I changed my can't to won't. And then I changed my personal trainer because I didn't want to do burpees anymore. And that adaptation that you're talking about was more along the lines of what I was more comfortable with and what my body could handle. And so it was moving, I love my kettlebells, love kettlebells. And so moving that, and for some reason, I don't know what it is. What is it, Eric? The difference between the kettlebells and just having the weights? The kettlebells to me are a lot better for me to move. Is it a female thing? Is it just the aerodynamics of it? I just love the kettlebells.
Absolutely not. And so this is why it's important. And part of what I do, aside from coaching individuals, is a big part of what I do is educating trainers. And I have courses that teach trainers how to write programs. And one of the sections of the course is not about how many reps or sets or picking exercises. It's about asking key questions. And if you have a really good coach or trainer, they should ask you those questions. Like, what have you been successful with? What have you not been successful with? What do you kind of like and don't like? And if you came into me as a client, Lorian, the first thing I'm going to hear is, I'm going to hear, I don't like to work out. And then I think, oh no, what am I doing here? And then all of a sudden now you turn around and say, I love kettlebells. I'm like, I'm going to grasp onto that, because kettlebells are a wonderful tool. They've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And there's so much elegance in some of the movements that you could do, whether it's a Turkish get up or a kettlebell swing. So like, I can put together a really good program where I can have you do maybe 3 or 4 kettlebell moves that are in a little circuit, and you're going to hit that for 10, maybe 20 minutes in a day, and it's going to check the box. There's your strength training. And now all of a sudden you're bought in and you love it, because I found the niche. I don't care whether you hold a kettlebell or a dumbbell or a cable machine or a barbell. It doesn't matter. I just need you to be challenged. And so understanding that is the art of what good coaching is. And so if someone's out there and they're looking for a trainer or coach, the way you know if you're finding somebody good is their ratio of questions to answers. We're doing some research for my course. We looked into initial client interviews, and physical therapists that they studied took on average 8 seconds listening to their patients on intake. Oof. And it's like, you're doing this person such a huge disservice. Sure. Like, this person finally got up the courage to change their life and coming to you to entrust their health, and you can't give more than 8 seconds of listening. So I spend more time listening and asking questions than I do giving answers. And then every question I always say, I'm like a little kid. I have 3 whys after each answer to kind of figure that out. And so if you have a coach or trainer or physical therapist that doesn't have that approach, find another one. There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah. Because you said something really, really important is they weren't listening. And again, I do the kettlebells, believe it or not, with yoga, because I love doing yoga. So the second trainer, identified what I did like doing, and combined them together to do things in a shorter period of time, which also allows me, I travel a lot, allows me to travel and take this with me. So no matter where I am, I can have a water bottle and use that as my kettlebell, if you will, and do whatever it is that I need to do. So the listening is important. You said something so important about making sure that the trainer is right for you, that the coach is right for you, that they're paying attention to what it is you want, as opposed to one size fit all. Coaching isn't one size fits all, right?
No, not at all. And so what ends up happening is most people go to this gym or sign up for this boot camp or whatever it is, and when they don't have success, they automatically assume that they're the failure, and that's not the case in most cases. Usually, it's because you were trying to adapt to that person's program.
Right.
And so the best way I can say if a coach or a trainer evolves is get to the point where right now, if you walk in the door and want to work with me, Lori, I really don't care what we do. I don't have a vested interest whether we do mobility work, whether we do speed training, whether we do kettlebells. It doesn't matter. It's just exercises at the end of the day. My whole thing is to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And so there's a lot of different ways you can get there. I teach a course on how to write programs. I can have a room full of coaches and trainers, and I could put up a case study and say, all right, write a program for this person. And I could get 10 different programs, and they're all right. They're all going to work. But
Yes.
one person may use one thing versus the other. And so it's a matter of really knowing how to cater to the individual and what their fears, what their beliefs, what their preferences are. There's a lot of different ways to bake that cake. And the art of being a good coach or a leader or a support system is knowing how to hit the right buttons. So I went from hearing somebody that didn't like to work out to somebody who loves yoga and kettlebells. Like, you know how much you just gave me as an opportunity of stuff to do? All the stuff to move well, all our mobility drills, stability drills, control, balance, all that stuff that helps you move well. It's all stolen from yoga. It's all, I didn't create any of this stuff. It's been around for thousands of years. I just figure out how to pick and choose to say, okay, well, you need a little more ankle mobility. Well, I have this movement or drill or pose or hold that I want you to do that's going to work on that, where this person may need more hip mobility or this person may need more core control. And then I just pluck out which of the poses or the moves or any of these things. But it's just a matter of learning how to get that recipe and what ingredients you need.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. So how much exercise is ideal for the average person to look and feel and perform their best? Like, how do you determine that? Like, how much exercise would I need? How much exercise would the next person need? How do you figure that out?
Okay, so a basic formula is in terms of, we'll put it into two buckets, actually three. One would be, let's talk about the move well. Usually the way I prescribe that is through what I call movement snacks, right? And so why do we not move well? Because we do this. We sit in desks and chairs all day. So how do we undo that? Well, it's really hard to do it in a block workout at some point in the week or the day, because our bad postures and positions are really just habits. So the only way to undo a habit is with another habit. And so having these movement snacks of where I'll tell people, here's 10, maybe 15 minutes, but usually 5 to 10 minutes of here's a couple movements based on whatever your needs are, that take a break once or twice, if not more, a day, and say, just do these 2 or 3 things, focus on your breathing, and just kind of realign yourself and get into better position shapes and postures. So movement snacks is something that you should be doing kind of every day. And it becomes a habit, no different than brushing your teeth, where it's just kind of part of who you are that helps you move well, which allows you to do the next 2 things, which is move with some purpose. And that's where you need some sort of strength challenge, whether that strength challenge is a kettlebell, or it's a more aggressive type of yoga, or if it's rucking or something of that nature, something that you're going to do, something that's going to physically challenge your muscles that they have to get stronger.
What's rucking?
Actually, okay, rucking is where you take a weighted vest. It comes actually from the military, and it's a former soldier who created a program called Go Ruck. And then there's been some knockoffs since, but the original program's Go Ruck, where he would take rucksacks, which is what the soldiers would wear. And because it's a great low impact way of strengthening and building cardio at the same time. And so when you go in your hike next time, you can get a weighted vest and you can incrementally increase the weight of the vest to where you can add that into your program as a variation into your hiking. So some sort of strength challenge, ideally a minimum kind of twice a week, You don't need to do this thing where most people think I need to do back and biceps and chest and triceps and all these specific body parts. You don't need to do all that. You just need to challenge your body. Ideally, there's some basic patterns that we all should be able to do. You all should be able to squat and lunge and bend and push and pull. And like I said, you can get that done in a relatively short period of time. And if you can get that a minimum of twice a week is ideal. You can do it up to 3 or 4 times a week if you like.
Wow.
That's your move with purpose. Then the last thing is to be able to move often. That's your conditioning. That's your cardiovascular fitness. And as far as your cardiovascular fitness, that can be broken into 3 buckets. You see a trend here with my threes, where you have
like your threes, my friend.
I do. My son's baseball number is 3. I love 3. So with that, the first bucket is your low intensity work, and that should be the vast majority of your work. And that's where you're doing stuff where it's enough where it's considered exercise, but you could still hold the conversation. And that could be walking, cycling, like I said, any low intensity type of activity. And you could do that for, and you don't have to do it all in one block. They actually did research where they took people and they had one group that did 30 minutes of continuous exercise. The other group did 3 10-minute bouts throughout the day, kind of breakfast, lunch, dinner type of thing. And the people who did the 3 10-minute bouts got just as good of results and actually had better staying power in the program. And so, because it just became part of their everyday kind of deal as far as their habit. So the bulk of that should be some low intensity work. So that's just going for a walk, whether it's morning, whether it's at lunch, whether it's after dinner to help digest, just going for a walk of 20 or 30 minutes. And ideally we get that at least 3 times a week. But I said, you can break up those minutes however you want.
And then the next thing, speaking of taking a break, you're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, continue the conversation. We're going to revisit the move off in the cardiovascular so we can review this. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne. If you'd like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, not-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we would love to hear from you. And I answer all of the emails personally. And if you could email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We want to jump back into this conversation that we're having with Eric Degatti, ericdegatti.com if you want to reach out to him. This is so inspiring because now you have shown me that I don't not like working out. I just don't like going to gyms and doing that repetitive stuff. And it can be adaptable, and it can be a lot of fun because I do like hiking. I like canoeing. I like kayaking. I like doing all that outside sports. I'm a big golfer. I do love golfing a lot. So we were just talking about the 3. First was the movement snacks, right? And I love that we call it snacks because who doesn't love snacks, right? Movement snacks. Then we want to move with purpose. So that's the strength challenge, right? And then moving often, that's the cardiovascular. That's where we left off. Can you review the cardiovascular?
Sure. As far as your cardiovascular and how you spread it throughout the week, the simple formula I use is 3-2-1. At least 3 days a week, or somehow that you total up to somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes of lower intensity work. That is walking, cycling, something where you're working to the point where you know you're doing something, but you can still easily hold a conversation with someone. Once you cross that threshold of kind of like if you and I were for a walk together, now we're hitting that big hill and it's like, hold on, I got to get up this hill. All right, now you've kind of crossed over into that second moderate type range where it's just above that threshold all the way up until just about your maximum. So somewhere in that middle buffer zone. You want to spend some time in there at least twice a week. And that could be for as little as 12 to 15 minutes total. So if we're going for a walk and we got one big hill, that's a part of it that we got to go up and down, that could be part of it there, where you're doing bouts of anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds of work with 30 to 60 seconds of recovery. That could be if you're out for a walk and you want to go and, hey, after I've kind of gotten going for a while, I'm gonna run for 30 seconds. I'm gonna walk for 60 seconds. I'm gonna run for 30 seconds. I'm gonna walk for 60 seconds. I'm gonna do, 5 or 10 times with that. The last thing is that you also should be able to hit your red line at some point. You want to be able to go all out to where you're huffing and puffing and you couldn't keep up that pace for any more than a minute, and you may even be able to only do it for 10 or 15 seconds. And that's the one thing that people don't do, is they don't challenge themselves enough. And you mentioned Tim Ferriss. I was in his book, the 4 Hour Body, and Tim's got the top podcast in the world, and he's a New York Times bestselling author. And one of the things he talks about is a lot of us die at a simmering 7. So if you have 0 is absolutely doing nothing, laying on your couch, and 10 is all out, I'm going to run for my life, is that stress is more at the 10, and then recovery and reset is more at the 0. Well, most of us never get to 10. We never get to 0. And so we just die at like the simmering 6 or 7, where we're just constantly getting this pinging stress, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's traffic, whatever it is. And you get this pinging low level stress that you never get to release, because you never get to 10, and you never get to reset because you never get to 0. So we need to have the ability to get to 10, and the exhilaration that comes with that, the physiological benefits, but also the mental benefits of that. You don't need to do it for much. It's maybe 5-6 minutes, and it's not all in a row. It's little bouts of 10, 20 seconds where, like, the exhilaration, I'm going to run as hard as I can for 10, 15 seconds. And then I'm going to walk for 2-3 minutes and then try it again.
Okay. Gosh, I'm exhausted just listening. No kidding. I'm hearing all the different things that we can do for ourselves, but can you give us an example of a basic exercise fitness program that even I could do?
Sure. So now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to latch on to, what you like to do with kettlebells, right? And as I said, you want to be able to get most of those major movement patterns in there. And so I mentioned them earlier. You want to be able to squat and lunge and bend and twist and push and pull. But here's the thing is, you don't have to do those all separately. Just like I said, you don't have to do all your body parts separately. So I mentioned earlier, let's say if you did a Turkish get-up with a kettlebell. And if you look at people like Strong First or my friend Brett Jones, who are artists in how they teach kettlebells, and they teach other trainers how to be the best kettlebell coaches in the world, is you learn the elegance of a Turkish get-up. Well, you know what? You have bending, you have lunging, you have twisting, you have pushing, you have all that built within there. And so I don't need to come up with specific exercise for each one of them. So I can get you to do a Turkish get-up. I can get you to do maybe some kettlebell swings or squats. And then I can get you to maybe do some push-ups. And that's going to check the box for your strength pretty well for the average person. Now, if you had a specific goal that I want to add a bunch of muscle, or I want to get specifically better at a certain activity or sport, that's a little different. But for general fitness, you can cover it pretty well with just that. Now, if the next person came to me and says, well, I'm scared of kettlebells, they're not what I like to do, I'd rather do body weight stuff. Well, it might be a little different formula, but it's the same concept of picking out 3 to 6 movements for that cover all those major movements. And notice I'm not working on parts, I'm working on movement patterns. And then once you get those somehow incorporated, they don't even have to be in the same workout. We can do some patterns some days, some patterns on the other day. You're going to look to do effort that takes you anywhere from 20 seconds to a minute, which is usually somewhere between 5 and 15 to 20 repetitions, depending on what it is that you're doing. Like I said, you do that 2-3 times a week. Your cardio, we already said you're going to do your 3-2-1, and then you add your movement stacks as many days and times as you can throughout the week, and you're pretty well rounded in terms of your fitness. And it didn't take a ton of time.
Yeah. And I think that's an excellent point. Most people use that time as an excuse not to do it. I call those justifiable excuses. An excuse, and you can fit it in. You can fit it in between other things if you're not having to go someplace. And that's really what you're proponent of, as long as you're moving, right? As long as you keep some kind of motion going on and you're properly fueling, and then you're giving your whole body a time to reset. I think that fitness and health is all related to how we function on a day-to-day basis, right? So how does that impact our work? Because I know when I get up in the morning and I do my walk with my partner, and we go and we take a walk, a brisk walk in the morning around the park just before we start, my day, I have so much more energy, and my day just like flies by, and I just have a different vibration basically in my body. I feel like, I'm ready to go and take anything on. So how does fitness really relate to, getting to work and work performance?
So there's the physiological benefits, but if I sit here and list you the physiological benefits, we all kind of know them. Like there's the endorphins, there's the physiological benefits of improved cardiovascular health and endurance and all that's and energy and those sorts of things. But like, I don't know if that necessarily resonates enough to sell people on it. Like, there's tons of really powerful research that shows exercise is just as potent, if not more potent, than antidepressants. But why, are antidepressants selling off the shelves and gyms having people run away after 2 or 3 months? Because it's challenging and it requires some effort. It requires, and here's the big key, Lorian, is that I tell everybody the difference between the people who are successful and the people who are not successful with my programs is one. It comes down to one thing: is non-negotiable habits. Meaning
Yes.
there's certain things, there's certain things that are just define who I am. And those things, I don't care if it's rain or shine, or if I got home late, or if I'm having a bad day, I make sure those get done. Just like you make sure you brush your teeth. Now, I don't care what necessarily those are. If you want to make a change, you need to pick one non-negotiable habit and do that, commit to doing that every day for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, hold on for a second. Let me make sure we define it, because our listeners here hear me say non-negotiable all the time. Non-negotiable, nothing replaces a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter. It has to be done. It is something that is a peril. You must do it. Nothing can replace it. So your best friend comes into town, you still do this. It's non-negotiable. You put it on your calendar. It doesn't get changed by anything. Your boss doesn't super change it. Nothing changes this. So non-negotiables are really important for you to have. And that's non-negotiable, and it's for you personally. So I love that you make it a non-negotiable. Love.
Yeah. And that's defines who you are. And so that habit could be on any part of that big three things. If it's every day I go for my walk, at some point I have to go for my walk, or every day I do something on that end on the movement side, or I do my movement snacks no matter what. It could be something on the fuel side, is that every day I do a reading from this certain book, or every day I make sure I hit at least this amount of protein every single day, or start every day with this many grams of protein or this much water. Or it could be on the reset side. Every day I'm committed to doing 10 minutes of deep breathing or meditation, those sorts of things. And if you try to start with all of them, right? I remember when I was a kid, being with my buddies in middle school, we'd watch Rocky. We'd get all excited. We'd wake up at 6 a.m. We'd drink raw eggs. We said we're going to run 5 miles. We get, 3 blocks. We throw up and go back and never do it again. Right. There's actually just some really cool research that came out. Arnold Schwarzenegger in his newsletter put out talking about the 100% principle. And everybody, the track record, the people that say it all starts Monday and Monday I'm going to be locked in, those people are doomed to fail. And so that's why I say I need you to pick one non-negotiable habit now and get to where that becomes locked in. And then what we do is you habit stack and say, okay, well, now I already got the breathing exercises locked in. Now I'm going to layer on top my protein. And now I'm going to layer on top my strength training. And now
That's
I'm going to
why
layer
I
on
call
top.
them snacks, so that you layer them on. They're little bits, and you just do a little at a time. And the 100% principle is so good, because it is, you're all in, and this is what you do. And it's bite sizes. So it's not eating a whole entire pizza. Even a pizza we cut into slices and we take bites of, right? The same thing with this. Take a bite. Start with one small thing that you do for yourself and make it into a habit. A habit takes, some people will argue with me on this, but the numbers and the research I have, it takes 21 days to build a habit, 90 days to build a lifestyle. Just do it for 21 days. Quick story. I was incorporating meditation into my life years ago at the time I was dating. And I remember that it was one of those days where I was just packed up with all kinds of clients, and I had so much to do, the whole 9 yards. I'm out on a date. And if I didn't get the meditation in before midnight, I would have to start from day 1 again. And I was on day something like 36 or 37. And you're supposed to go 40 days in a row. That was not going to happen. I literally ran out of the restaurant. I explained it to them, ran out of the restaurant, got in my car, did my meditation in my car. So I still did that non-negotiable that day, but I'm telling you, it was by hairs. I was having a good time. I forgot all about it. Time escaped me, and it was almost 12 midnight. So that's a non-negotiable. You stop everything you're doing and you go back and you make sure you do it for yourself, and you won't regret it. Again, I didn't want to start from day 1.
So I give people the 80-20 rule, the way we do it, going back to the 100% thing. I've been telling people for 20 years, here's the 80-20 rule. That means if you follow everything I ask you to do 80% of the time, the other 20%, You can miss a workout. You can have that slice of pizza. You can, maybe stay up late or whatever, but that other 80% has to be dialed in. And
Yeah.
that's pretty livable. That gives you 4 or 5 meals a week that you can blow out. That gives you a workout you can blow off. That gives you a day that you don't have to be totally locked in. But those other 80% have to be. And then if you're not getting to your goal fast enough, you can always tweak that percentage, but that's a livable percentage. Now, I have certain people that we can't use that percentage because they have a season that's starting on this date, or they have a tryout, or they have something very specific that they have to be prepared for. And we may need to be 100% on because this is going to alter. I have somebody I work with this morning that has a workout as a professional football player coming up in 3 weeks. He has to be 100% on. Now, he's not going to do that for the rest of his life. He's not even do that for the rest of this year. It's just for this short period. And so understanding that, that's there. But most people aren't in that situation. Most people, if you do everything you need to do and follow all the guidelines I've given you 80% of the time, the other 20%, you have some room for error because remember I said it's cumulative. It's not one day, it's not 1 week, it's not 1 month. It is over time.
I can tell you that for me, the 80-20 rule wouldn't work because the 20%, I would squeak to 30, squeak to 40. So I know myself well enough to know that it's a hardcore, non-negotiable every single day thing. But I love the fact that you have that flexibility where it's almost like you do things for 5 days and maybe take, it's similar to my eating habits. I will eat really, really healthy during the week. And on the weekends, I may have a drink or two. I may eat something that I normally wouldn't eat during the week. So that's my 80-20 split.
So, and some of that comes down to why people have coaches, and that's what the accountability is. But the same accountability can be had if you have friends that you walk with. If you know that they're not going to, that if you miss one walk during the week because, hey, I'm really jammed up or I have to take the kids somewhere tonight, they're going to understand. If you start blowing off 2, 3 in a row, those people, should kind of call you out on it. And it's the same thing a coach does. So I can look at your food logs and I can see you're journaling your food initially. So I can start to get you in the right groove with you to see how you're eating. And I can look and say, well, look, you think you're doing 80-20, but you're more like 40-60 here. And so we need to dial that up a little bit. And so that's what allows you. Most people, don't really have a good, accurate depiction of where they're at. And so that's why having a coach or a trainer is helpful to kind of to bump you in the right direction and say, you know what, you need to relax a little bit. It's okay. Go out and you're good. Don't take the weekend off and don't work out. Or it may be saying like, look, you think you're 80%, you're not. You're just not. So, and here's what we're looking at here. You're not realizing all these other things. And so that's really where the accountability, and whether it's a friend, whether it's a group, or whether it's a coach, that's where you keep on track.
Absolutely. And that the accountability part is really important because those are the days. And I had this rule too, as I met a partner at a location. And I would say neither one of us was allowed to call each other in the morning. So if you didn't show up, you knew you were letting the other person down. If we had that excuse, justifiable excuse to say, hey, by the way, I'm not coming today, it made it harder to say no because I knew she was waiting for me. And it was the best thing that I ever did because every time I was going out there, I knew I had to go. Like there were days I'd be like, no, I'm not going. I'm not doing this. And to make the phone call and throw a text was easy. I couldn't do that. I wasn't allowed. So then I would be like never mind, I'll get in the car. And so that accountability partner is good. And if you don't have somebody who's going to gently hold you accountable, a coach, that's what we do. You and I both do that. We set that environment and that platform to allow us to help you be successful and help remind you of what the goals that you set and help remind you how you can modify some of these things. All right. I have a shift in my schedule. How can we modify and still add it to the schedule? So that's beautiful that you do that. It's health and fitness is so important to the longevity and the quality of our life. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, there's some really powerful research coming out now because it was something that really wasn't thought about when I started in the industry, a bunch of years ago. And now you have, with the rise of success of people like Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Peter Attia, talking about not just lifespan, but health span. There's a hugely successful new Netflix series right now called Into the Blue Zones, where a journalist goes and studies blue zones, which are these areas where they have an abnormally high number of people that not only live to 100, but thrive to 100, and looking to see what are the commonalities among these, whether it's in Okinawa, Japan, or whether it's in sections of Sardinia or these remote, suburbs in California. What is it that they have in common? And there are some basic principles that almost fall in line with that three big things that I talk about. They all have some level of movement. In Okinawa, they all garden for at least 2 hours a day. Whereas someplace else in Southern India, they're also very active and they're farmers. They're shepherds. So movement's a big part of it. The second part of it is fuel. They all eat something indigenous to their area. And what was interesting is when they showed when outside food sources started to come into these indigenous areas and cultures, those numbers kind of leveled out, and they became where Okinawa is now the highest rate of obesity in Japan, because they've been infiltrated with a lot of Western foods, whereas they didn't have that before. And then in terms of the reset, they all not only have a strong sense of community, a sense of connection, but they also have this strong sense of purpose and why they do what they do. And in Japan, they actually have a term for it called ikigai, which is kind of your life's purpose. And so having all that, and this shows up time and time again in research. Sanjay Gupta is a brilliant neurosurgeon who's on CNN, wrote a book called Brain Rules, and he talks about brain health, but it really applies to all health. And it was the same principles of movement, of sleep, which is basically a reset, of having social connection. All those things connect and really go against the grain of what most people really do as they get older. They lower their expectations and just assume that, because I'm older, that I can't do things or I shouldn't do things, which is nonsense. I'm 51 now, and I have no intentions of slowing down anytime soon. I play competitive men's baseball every Sunday. I'm not the old guy with a pinch runner that can't do any things. I'm stealing bases. I'm laying out for balls. I'm a little kid. And so I have no intention of stopping doing that anytime. We also kind of have this expectation of, that this is just the way it's going to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so having that purpose, having that understanding of defining who you are, and kind of going back to your non-negotiables, that defines who you are. And I explain to people, like I'll have clients or a group of athletes working in, and let's say there's one guy that always shows up late, right? And they say, oh, well, that's just Jake. That's just who he is. And I'm like, well, I never want to be that guy. Yeah. Right. And so I'm going to define myself as a person who's not that person. So I can be the person that's counted on, going back to your point about the accountability earlier. So all these actions and habits define who you are. So you have to set the goal of not only who you are, but what do you want to be and what do you want to be known as?
Without a doubt. So just to recap, we want to make sure we move well with purpose, and often we fuel, which is this number 2 for you. We drink good drinks, water, have good food, quality food, surf the external area of your grocery store if you have to shop in a grocery store, because that's where all the most healthy food is. And what you allow into your system, meaning TV, radio, what you're listening to, what you're hearing, the people you surround yourself with. And then the third level of your 1, 2, 3, which is your reset and sleep and meditation, and making sure you shut down and have a moment of shh in your life, which is real important for us to be able to excel both physically and mentally. This has been really amazing. I'm huge with the making sure if you're going to start something, don't start on Monday, start now. If you're going to make that commitment, start now. It doesn't matter. Start now. And if you made a mistake or if you ate something that you wish you hadn't, the next minute is to start now. So start now as you can. Eric Dagati, you are amazing. I'd love to have you back. So much more to cover with you. Go to ericdagati.com. I'm sure you will love every minute of that. I appreciate you being on so very much. Thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we've earned the privilege of your time. Until next time, I am Coach Lorianne. Play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Eric.